Hey there, Georgie here with Ukraine Matters. It's nice to be back in the studio to finally make a proper video for you. So let's dive straight in. Firstly, let's appreciate a couple of Russian cities that are enjoying this very hot spring. And when I say hot, I mean very hot, because both Perm and Tuapse, two cities that are looking very much alike nowadays, as there are big oil refineries that are now completely obliterated. Ukraine has been striking Tuapse once again, so from my previous video when I was talking about strikes on Tuapse, this video is once again talking about newer strikes on Tuapse. But there was also strikes in Perm on the oil refining facility, and also in the city of Orsk in Orsk-Nefteorsk Synthesis refinery. We don't know right now precise number of what kind of damage Ukraine has really put on Russia, but the estimates are that current exporting capacities of Russia might be going down somewhere around the ballpark of 60 to 70% already. And that is massive. That is truly massive. So all of the benefits that Russians were hoping to get from the increased oil prices, I think Ukraine is just putting a hard brake on it, and it is costing Russia a lot. And obviously the fact that we're seeing all of these facilities being on fire in Russia means one thing and one thing only, especially when you read the reports and watch the video of Ukrainian drone strikes, is that Russia is thoroughly running out of the anti-air assets. A lot of these strikes on these facilities have been pretty much unchallenged. A lot of Ukrainians' drones are striking these facilities. So it's not only missiles, it's just the simpler drones. And talking about drones, there has been also Magyar and his unmanned system forces that reported the strikes against a couple of helicopters in Voronezh region of Russia, which is always great because helicopters are very nasty and they're very helpful to fight against the Ukrainian drones, and now the drones are taking out the anti-drone stuff. The modern warfare, ladies and gentlemen. But as you all know, the main thing that we're following right now in April, and April is pretty much over, was whether or not Russia will be able to get the tempo of attacks back on the board, whether they will be able to increase their tempo on the front line. Because we compared the previous year and this year, and around the same time, there was this lull where Russia recuperated their forces, and we were expecting whether or not Russia will be able to restart their offensive campaign. And what we're seeing is truly shocking, because while Russia over the last week has increased the number of clashes by 26%, by a quarter increase per week, the total number of territory gained is only 4 square kilometers per day, which is one of the lowest indicators in the last couple of months. So it's not only me, everyone is now noticing that Russia is having a really bad time, that Russia is bleeding. All of the different articles that are appearing on different media resources, they're stating that Moscow is really having big trouble. They're having trouble with their casualties. Right now, the reports are that for the 5th month in a row, Russia is not able to mobilize a sufficient number of manpower. And not only they're not reaching their target that they want to mobilize, even their target and the actual number of mobilized people is lower than what Ukraine is inflicting in casualties on Russia. And Ukraine also has increased their deep strike capabilities, cutting out Russian logistics, which is probably one of the strongest causes of why Russia just cannot organize their offensive operation. Ukraine is truly winning on the front line. More and more people are asking me these questions, and it is completely in the air. Try to remember 2025. Do you have that feeling that maybe the tide is turning a little bit in favor of Ukraine? I don't think so. All throughout 2025, it felt like pretty much that Russia was sort of in control. Now, not much the case. And this is funny because Donald Trump has been saying that you're going to be tired of winning. And the question is here is like, who is he actually betting on? Because so far, it seems that Ukraine is winning a lot. So maybe betting on Ukraine is pretty good idea. Remember, all of the people that bet against Ukraine have lost, and Russia is losing the worst, because European Union, with the unlocked 90 billion loan to Ukraine, is now pretty much guaranteeing that Ukraine will have the necessary resources to continue fighting Russia for at least the next 2 years. More importantly, this 90 billion loan is only part of what is going to be provided to Ukraine. European states and other allies of Ukraine are going to be contributing beyond that. It is expected that Ukraine is going to have pretty big and decently sized military budget for this and next year, allowing Ukraine to invest into its capabilities. I want you to think about something. The first 2-3 years, there was almost no investments into Ukraine. And only like 2024, at the end 2025, when we saw European countries, especially with the Danish model, start investing into Ukraine. In a year and a half, Ukraine, with investments into drones, they were able to utilize that money a lot more efficiently and build the capabilities that they need. Now this model is proven, and now Ukraine is getting this massive injection of funds. What is also not noted here is the Ukrainian agreement with the Gulf states, with Ukraine providing a lot of security assets to the Gulf region. This is going to bring many billions to Ukrainian budget, and this is going to help Ukraine a lot. To which Russia is just lashing out. Right now, they are talking about Finland, the Baltic states supporting Ukraine. Also, recently there was Romania discussed in the same context as the countries that are providing their drone space for the Ukrainian drones to attack Russia, which doesn't make sense when you kind of look at the lines in the map. Why would Ukrainian drones need to fly through the airspace of these countries? Because they're able, as we see in Tuapse, to just fly in and destroy everything that they need without much resistance. So this is clearly Russia just lashing out. Russia is having major issues. We talk a lot about the Russian economy. It is truly going down, and we're going to have a dedicated video for it. But beyond the economy and the military problems at the front line, Russia is experiencing big political crisis. We were expecting when something is going to finally shift. When is there going to be some kind of change in perception between the Russians? Because so far, Russia has been riding high on the military dividends. And I explained you a lot that the Russian population just haven't really experienced the war sort of returning to them. Majority of it was fought in Ukraine, as Ukraine didn't have the capabilities to strike targets inside Russia. More than that, Russia was shielding a lot of their population because they had a war chest that they were just depleting over the last couple of years to finance this war and protecting the citizens from pretty much any fallout from this war. But now data is clear. So one of the interesting ratings. Now, we shouldn't look at the numbers here because this is like a Putin support approval rating. This is a dictatorship, so the absolute numbers mean absolutely nothing here. What we're looking specifically in this chart in the Putin's approval rating is the dynamic. And dynamic is very clear. You see, as the 2022 invasion of Ukraine started, we saw that this quick and easy victory for Russia, the narratives that they've built, was very popular with the Russian population. Again, we don't look at the actual absolute numbers. We're looking at the trend, that there was in support like a rally around the flag effect. But now, 2026, we see a very steady fall, and right now numbers for Putin are already on the same rating, reporting to be close to the ones that were before the invasion into Ukraine, which was one of the most unpopular Putin has been in Russia. Now, in dictatorship, Putin's popularity doesn't mean anything. We shouldn't look into this and expecting that there's going to be some kind of popular uprising against the dictator. Absolutely not. Russians still support this war wholeheartedly. What this does indicate is that political benefits of this war, shielding the population from the consequences of this war, is not possible. Russians are finally starting to experience on their own skin that this war is actually nasty, and it is now coming back to Russia. And remember, this is all happening on the basically Ukraine investing in their capabilities over the year and a half that when they finally got the access. And for anyone that follows, the writing is right there on the wall already. Moscow's Victory Day parade will be held without military vehicle. It will be just soldiers walking down the Red Square. So all of the show and glory of the parade is going to be out and gone. Now, if you don't understand why parade is important, a lot of countries have parade, is that in Russia, because Russia is so incredibly poor, they have very little things that they are really proud of. And a lot of the propaganda plus kind of reflection on the lives of Russians, they built this narrative within the society. Something that is like ingrained in every Russian is this cult-like, almost like sort of a religious belief in the Soviet and Russian victory. It became something that defines to be Russian, is to believe in the Soviet victory. And this is pretty obvious that the last thing that you want to do is to sabotage the only day that Russians can still live in their same shithole, go out, smell the smell of garbage, trash, exhaust, and your burning refineries, and still be proud of being Russian while chugging down the bottle of vodka. That is what being Russian is, that one day when they can be proud of being Russian. And right now Putin is stating, well, I cannot really do much about it, because even he is truly realizing that at some point Ukrainian drones might come and visit this parade. But not having armored vehicles is not the only restriction that Russia is going to be imposing. The reports are that there's going to be restrictions on communication, mobile networks, internet, physical travel, and also there might not be any air component because maybe instead of planes, it will be Ukrainian UAVs flying overhead. And that is not something that Putin really wants. It is right there written on the wall, as I stated. Putin knows that he is very screwed, and he and everyone around him are very afraid. But they're so deep in, they're slaves to this war, and they need to continue pretending and hoping that there's going to be someone on the Western side that's going to sell out Ukraine. In completely unrelated news, Donald Trump just called Putin, where they had an hour-and-a-half conversation where they discussed how they want to achieve peace in Ukraine. They believe that the end of the conflict is already near, that supposedly there is... Putin described the current situation on the front line to Trump, stating that, oh my God, Russia is attacking on every direction and we are winning so hard. Again, we have the data on how hard Russia is winning. Then Putin presented the narratives to Trump, stating that there was exchange of bodies between Russians and Ukrainians, where Russia transferred 20,000 Ukrainian bodies to Ukraine, and Ukraine transferred only 500 bodies to Russia, which is obviously, you understand what is happening here. Essentially, Putin is painting a narrative that the losses are 20-1 towards Ukrainian side. There is a sentimentality around the fact that Zelensky is prolonging the conflict, yada yada, and basically, yeah, the declaration on that the war will continue, that Putin will achieve all of the goals of the special military operation. And Putin is proposing that there is going to be some kind of a truce between Russia and Ukraine on the parade of the 9th of May. Now, this already happened last year, I believe, where Zelensky agreed to it. Maybe it's going to happen this year. Now, the report of this just came out. So at some point, Trump is going to talk about this beautiful call that he had with Putin. So I'm going to be now predicting the future. So if I predict the future correctly, guys, you need to go to the fundraiser and you need to fundraise the drones for the Ukrainian armed forces. But coming back to predicting the future, so Trump is going to say that agreement is very close, that he feels that Putin is already very close to agreement. He's going to talk about that there is a lot of hostility between Russia and Ukraine. He's going to talk that this war would never happen if he would be president. And he's going to talk about that Putin was ready for agreement all the time. And he's going to try to blame Zelensky for prolonging this this war, so to say. So write me in the comments if I was right or wrong, if this statements will come out maybe in a day or two about this beautiful call, probably another. And the most important part for us to take away from this is that it does not matter. US has lost a lot of clout. The situation around Iran and Hormuz Strait has truly kneecapped a lot of the US clout and influence on the Ukraine war. The fact that Ukraine stopped being on the front lines really removed a lot of pressure. And now, because there is not that big pressure, a lot of what Trump really wants and a lot of what he really talks with Russia doesn't really matter anymore. Ukraine is getting the funds that they need to fight the war. Ukraine is producing the weapons that they need to fight the Russians. And more importantly, US is providing the weapons to Ukraine only through the sales mechanisms. And reports are that those sales mechanisms are working no matter what. So it doesn't really matter what US wants. I mean, there's been two levers that US had over Ukraine. One was the intelligence providing to Ukraine. And I mean, I'm still having reports. I cannot fully verify them, but I am pretty certain that a lot of that intelligence is not really being provided to Ukraine for free, if you know what I mean. And secondly, that United States is having sanctions on the Russian economy. Well, now, United States is lifting all of its sanctions already. So they are elevating any and all leverage they have in Ukraine anyways. So while I know Trump is a big topic for a lot of things that are happening in the world, his role in Ukraine is, by this point, pretty insignificant. The assessment that really matters is this. President Zelensky says Russia is not in a strong position. It does not win. We are in the best position in the last 9 to 10 months. I mean, on the battlefield. But anyway, the war is better stopped. True, it is better to stop this war. Ukraine never chose this war. But looking back right now at all of the years of the Ukrainian invasion by Russia, Ukraine has never been in the sort of a brightest, more stable position going forward, where Russia is having long-term systemic issues, and Ukraine, that had a lot of systemic issues, is now slowly working to resolve this, and I covered this plenty. And on the battlefield, yeah, Ukraine is not yet regaining territory, but it is definitely inflicting a lot of damage on Russians. And there are usually two knee-jerk reactions that I get whenever I say that Ukraine is going to win this war. One is that Russia nuclear weapons, because logic in those people's heads is Russia uses nukes, ... something happens, Russia wins. So they don't really have like a strict chain of what is actually bringing Russia closer to victory if they use the nuclear weapons. Whereas in reality, there are actually more problems that Russia will have if they do. And the second thing is Russia has infinite manpower, so they will just mobilize. And President Zelensky is stating that yes, the plans for mobilizations are present in Russia. And there are right now rumors that with the new banning of the Telegram and social media, Russia is preparing the mobilization effort for approximately 1 year to mobilize about 1 million people. Again, just rumors for now, nothing official. And I want to say a lot about this topic, but I think the better way to do it is to read some Z propagandists. Igor Strelkov, war criminal, pretty much the person that started this whole mess in 2014 single-handedly. He is the person that has been critiquing Russia for their failed military campaign. Despite the fact that he's an absolute piece of shit fascist, that just wants to destroy Ukraine, that wants to basically take over all of the Europe, he very clearly understands the situation on the battlefield itself. And he has been predicting the situation that Russia is right now finding itself in for a while now. And this is what he has to say about mobilization. So again, not me saying one of the worst Russian Z propagandists. Now, he's in prison right now in Russia, but not because of what he's stating about Putin. It's because he was attacking Putin's girlfriend that has Putin's kid, and that is unacceptable in dictatorship. Anyway, he says, mobilization was needed in the spring of 2022, spring of 2023, spring of 2024, and maybe even the spring of 2025. Now, mobilization is catastrophically late. Now, mobilization in the form in which bulk of the population perceives it will not bring any results. Now we need to mobilize the war economy. Unfortunately, the time when it was possible to defeat, trample the enemy, and drive them into the ground with masses of infantry has already ended. It happened in 2022, 23, 24, and in 25th. And that is true. Remember 2025. Maybe if Russia would have that additional 500, 600,000 troops in 2025, maybe then Ukraine could be overrun. I don't believe so, but there is a case to be made about this. Now, there is a war of drones that are capable of destroying any number of infantry brought to the battle on any front, as wide as desired. The enemy has established such production of drones and missiles in Europe, and Ukraine is able to hold the front with just the drones itself. The large masses of people that will arrive to the front line and equipment will be destroyed without achieving any success. Time is lost. So to sum up what he said is that now you can mobilize people to the front as much as you like. They will not be able to reverse the outcome of the war. This moment has passed. I have been calling for mobilization for 4 years. Now I am not calling for the mobilization that I spoke about before because it's pointless. We, our economy, don't even have enough weapons to arm them. That is the Russian Z propagandist assessment, the person that actually stated that Russian plan to capture Ukraine and the way that they were fighting was completely unsustainable and it's going to bring Russia to completely downfall. And this is exactly where Russia is finding themselves in. So mobilization by itself at the current situation at the front line, where for one Russian soldier there is like 10 plus Ukrainian drones hunting each one of them, the saturation is just too damn high. Ukrainians will destroy any number of Russians that will arrive. And yes, maybe Russia will be able to improve some of their numbers captured, but captured territory does not mean winning. It just means more dead Russians. And no one talks about it better than the daddy himself, if I can say so, paraphrasing Mark Rutte, the Robert Brovdi Magyar, where he says that exchange the bodies of enemies, dead soldiers, for pieces of metal and plastic that cost $300 to $500 is the best exchange rate in the world. You are absolutely right, my Jaga man. So guys, participate in this, support Ukraine, make the impact for Ukraine to win. Our fundraiser has been going well in February, March, a little bit less, so let's put extra effort right now. Let's do what we can, support Ukraine, trust in Ukrainian armed forces. I love you. Slava Ukraini, and I will see you very soon next time.